Hello. In this video, I'm going to talk about drawing the double story lowercase g, which can be also another one of those characters like the lowercase s and a, where they don't really seem to have too much in common with the rest of the alphabet that you might be designing. However, I'll show you how they do share that and the kind of proportions involved with them. Now with that character, what we need is references, so we need to obviously get the G glyph, excuse me, and really what a double story lowercase g is it is a very similar round shape to the O that is about roughly about half. This shape becomes about half of the X height body, which would be, or I shouldn't say the X height body exactly, but that X height area, which is between here and the baseline, the X height and the baseline. And then there's a spine stroke that's actually similar to the S. We can really use this to get started. It's quite helpful. And then there's an ear shape, which we can decide many different variations. We already have a bunch of parts, like these serif shapes, that can help us build that. So what we do is we grab the O, and instead of shrinking, I could shrink this shape like this. But it's not the best way to do it, I think, because then we would have to get the math the same again. I think the best thing to do is to actually just shape it like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and just keep kind of compressing the shape like this. And it's going to look weird, obviously, to start, but don't worry, making it a little bit narrower. And okay, that is a little bit too narrow, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back again for now. And I'm going to make this there. Okay, so this half I think works better at the moment. And okay, so right now we're going to have the rough kind of G shape built in here. Sometimes when you do this flipping thing, it'll also show you weird things that you might have had in your character. This is becoming quite geometric, actually, which isn't terrible, but it's not maybe ideally what I want or what we want for this character. But more or less, this is about the size of the eye. Could be a little bit bigger. Okay, that's a pretty good size and a pretty good width, maybe just a little bit wider. And then I'm going to do this flipping thing. In fact, what we should have here, this could be a lot better. Okay, flip, flip, and urge. Nice. Okay. I was feeling like it's getting a little too rectangular in particular, so what I might do in that case is just do this and then grab these points and go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then just make sure that it sits at the X height. Okay, now I don't need that O. We're going to talk about the proportions now of the G. So I'm going to bring in this S spine, and I'm going to cut it here. Alright, and we don't need all this stuff. Well, you know what, we're going to save this, make these into curves, and I'm going to just throw this in here for now. Alright, now here's the thing about a G. Let's think about the writing of it again, because this is more or less the modulation has a broad pen ancestor. So if I'm writing this, I'm holding the pen at like this kind of 20 to 15 degree angle you see here. I'm writing down and around, and it's producing the thick and thin. Then if I'm taking that pen at the same angle and going out, down, and around, and I'm traveling probably left to right at this point across the spine, and then curving down to the descender, and then coming back up, it means that the thickness of these areas here should probably be similar to this, something in between this thickness and this thickness, these thin areas. So what that means for me is that I need this part of G. First of all, I need to have this area so that this thick part is more or less stationed kind of at the just underneath the baseline. And here's the trick with the width of the G. The G has an ideal kind of G, which really Claude Garamond showed us the kind of ideal lowercase g in type anyways, is proportion. What we actually want is we want, on the left-hand side of this character, we want this spine to stick in a little bit. Okay, we want this outside shape, which is going to be like this. I'm going to just rough this in. We want this loop to actually stick out a little bit from here. This is looking crazy right now. It's going to get better. And obviously this has to sit at the descender area. And I'm going to have to modify this, of course, later, but this is the general shape of G that we want. And this side, it does need to stick out significantly further, and there will be an ear that sticks out here. This is a little bit too far right now. I think we want something more like this. Okay, now what we really need in particular is we need a spine. And we need that spine to be something similar to this weight of S and something like this. This is actually pretty good. I think this is too heavy for this area, so we don't want to clog this up. So with that being said, I'm moving this up a little bit more. But then what I need is I need to kind of establish what this area is going to be like, this pattern. I need the movements to be relative too. This would move down and out and down and out. So it needs to be similar to that too. But right now, trying to get these guys to match. I'm actually going to go for this. I think that's a much better shape. As you can see here, works way better. And throw this up again. Now you might wonder, where should this spine sit on, does this sit on the X side, on the baseline? It's okay if this is sort of even could be centered on the baseline, but I think more of it should be on top of the baseline than under it. Let's work with this and see if we want to adjust it. We'll get our shapes in there first, but really the spine is working pretty well for us right now. I wouldn't really want to move this up too much. This is a pretty nice shape actually if I do that. And I might want to try to recapture that. And to do that, what I would need to do then is move the whole shape up and then reshape this area up here. And what I'm going to do is, okay, I'm going to grab this, move this down. What I'm going to do is push this over. You know what, actually, I think that what we had was better. Sometimes you do this, sometimes you're designing a shape, especially something more complex like this, And you actually realize after you try to make a change that what you had before was better. So you can go back. You can even create layers where you work on things, but we don't need to do that right now. All right. And you know what? I think I've gone too far. Sorry. Where was it where we moved down? Because you know what we had was really nice. No. That's what we're going to go with. I think that works the best. What I might do is I might just shift this up a little bit more. Okay, but that's pretty good. We want to stop there. Okay, now here's the thing about this character. We need it to also have some weight over here, but it doesn't get as thick as this area. But it has to have the same kind of behavior that this shape has. Now, one way to achieve that is to copy paste and place this in this area, put it as a mask, and then you can use it as a starting point. So what I might do then is this very thing that I'm doing, I might get this bulked in, roughed in, and that's not working the same way right now. That's fine. Another thing to do is actually this. What I do is, I know I want a certain thing, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it exactly, or more or less exactly, and get the same kind of shape. So I'm going to do this, because I don't want that kind of curve. I could also just copy and paste that part and it would be faster, but nah. Let's do it this way. I'm already here. Okay, so almost the same. I don't want it to be that thick. It's going to be too heavy if I make it the same weight, but I'm just getting the shape generalized. And then I want to do something like this. This is good. I want this to thin out. Okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to do. Now you could say, well, actually, maybe I'll leave it open, but I don't want to do that for this one. I want them to connect. Okay, so now we've got the same stroke entry, and we're getting the same weight, but it is going to have to change. I won't sit here and say, you know, it can be exactly the same. It has to change. So I'm going to try something like this, and now we're starting to get that lowercase g flow. The same kind of movement here. Think about the way that a calligraphy pen would move through this shape. Okay, and that's not working very well because this curve on the bottom and then outside is it's a little bit too flat. So I'm going to try something here. Try something a bit different. Oh, don't want that, sorry. Now you know what, it was okay actually the way it was. That wasn't the problem. This part. The lowercase g can take quite a bit of reshaping and work. Let's see, how does that work? That's better. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this shape. I like this curve. I'm going to pull it back in. Okay, and I'm going to also let this get influenced. There you go. And up there. All right. Okay, now that's pretty good lowercase g shape. pretty good rough in anyways. And what I need this shape, so this is working pretty well. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to see if actually I could benefit from an anchor point here, which I will eventually need anchor points. So what I'm going to do is actually add extreme points. By the way, paths add extremes will place points at the extreme areas. And I want to modify this shape a bit. I want this to actually cut down a bit faster, which is why I would need to add points there. I can't do it any other way, really. And also, you would, in terms of PostScript language, you would need a curve there. Okay, now we need our spur, our ear. I'm going to use this spur to get started. But this ear on the G, or on, yeah, well, on any typical G, it can take this kind of general shape. It can take many shapes, though. I'm going to use this because it makes sense. It's based on patterns that we've been designing with. And I'm going to do something like this. And we can do that, but I think it should be a bit thicker than that. And it doesn't quite come up to the X height, actually. That's something, or if it does sit on the X height, it's sort of just straddling that area. And I don't want it to be very noticeable, actually. You know, another thing we could do for this is we could just make it quite heavy, and that would actually work pretty well. Cool. And make it less noticeable. It doesn't have to be super noticeable, because I don't want it to stick out too much further than this loop, or it's going to get to be a weird looking. Move it up a bit more. Yeah, cool. All right, and then I would leave this open. I wouldn't merge this shape yet because you might need to change it quite a bit. So it's better to leave it open. All right, and that is the lowercase g.